I wanted to design a go-kart kit that anyone could build out of wood. That way we can learn about tools, mechanics, and have a go-kart at the end. Here's a walkthrough video of how I built it, starting with the frame. Now we're going to cut the plywood for the top of the frame and make sure to use safety glasses. We're going to cut the plywood at 4 feet long. The center 2x6 will be 6 feet long. That 2x6 will determine the overall length of your go-kart. The other two 2x6s will be 4 feet each. These 2x6s will have to match the length of the plywood. Remember to always measure twice, that helps avoid mistakes. To figure out the width, you're going to want to sit on it and make sure you have enough room for armrests and a seat. Then you can determine the width. I planned the space where the seat would go and determined 34 3/4 inch was the right width for me. Once you know the width, then cut 4 2x4s to complete the frame. These bars will span the width of the frame. With all the wood cut, now you're ready to assemble the frame. Our 3.5-inch screws are barely big enough to fit between these 3 boards, so we have to drill on both sides. Just to be sure it holds together, we used 18 screws per side. The completed frame should look something like this. The length and width can vary based on your preference for size. Now that we got our frame together, we can set on the front wheels. You start with 1.5-inch squared signpost bar. Now we're going to cut the signpost material into 3-inch sections to hold the axle. You'll use multiple 3-inch sections to hold the axle to the frame. We're going to be cutting this 2x4 to put on the front of the frame to attach the 2 front wheels. The front 2x4 should be the same width as the frame. Today we're going to be mounting the front set of wheels. First we're going to be mounting the 4 metal pieces onto the 2x4, and then we're going to be drilling a 5/8-inch hole through them, and then we're going to cut a 1-inch section off of the metal pole to be a spacer for the wheel. This is what your completed front wheel assembly should look like. It's upside down in this picture, so flip it over to mount it to the frame. Here's a close-up so you can see the spacer just to the left of the signpost bar. Now we got our front assembly complete, and it's time for the back. For the rear drive wheel, you'll need an extra piece of signpost to hold the axle in place. Here you can see we've got the drive wheel attached with the teeth of the sprocket on the far right side. To keep the brake pad in place, you'll need to bolt down the bottom connector to the frame of the go-kart. Here's another shot of the position of the brake band bolt in the frame. Now we're going to mount the assembly to the frame. You want to make sure that the front wheels are within reach of your legs so that you can turn. Your legs should be able to bend about like this to make sure you can steer. Now we're able to assemble the seat. I'm drilling the holes for the edges of the seat. You can design the seat however seems comfortable for you. We used another piece of plywood and leaned it back just a bit. We cut some 2x4s at an angle to help brace the seat. If a parent's going to ride in it, you're going to want to make the seat a little bigger. We got our seat assembled at the right distance from the wheels. The frame is complete, now onto braking and throttle controls. Now that we got the seat completed, we can figure out the height we need for the handlebars and mount it on the go-kart. You'll want the handlebars about mid-chest level. Make sure your handlebars are high enough for your knees when you're steering. Use U-bolts to brace the handlebars in place. At this point, it's really starting to look like a go-kart. Now that we got our steering and handlebars mounted, we can move on to the engine. For the engine, we're going to be using the Predator 212cc that you can get at Harbor Freight for a little over $100. The 6.5 horsepower 212cc is going to be plenty of power. You'll mount the engine on the side of the frame with the drive wheel. So we're going to be removing the key from the shafts because we bought the clutch and it came with one. So you're going to want to buy a clutch bolt kit off of Amazon because when you buy the clutch, it doesn't come with one. Make sure the bolt size matches the clutch that you bought. It'll prevent your clutch from just spinning right off of the engine. Now we're going to loosen the throttle arm so you can control it with a cable. So if you search up a lot of videos on YouTube, it'll show you have to take this part off to loosen this area, but you can actually go down here and unscrew the governor bolt just a little bit, and then it'll be loose also. The throttle will be loose.
Yep.
We're using bike brake levers that you'll attach the throttle cable to. We planned to do the same thing with the brake cable but couldn't get enough travel. We ended up installing a simple lever for the brake cable instead. Now we're going to position the chain to where it's tight with the engine and the drive wheel. We're using a 35 chain, which is big enough and strong enough for the engine. If the chain is too long like ours is, then you can break it apart and reconnect it. So when you're mounting your engine, you're going to want to have your clutch chain connection aligned with your sprocket chain connection. You need to make sure the teeth of the clutch are aligned with the teeth of the sprocket. Now that we got our chain connected, we're ready to attach the throttle cable. You're going to want to mount the throttle cable at the same height as the throttle lever to assure it pulls straight.
Go.
When you're starting your engine, you're going to want to have the right oil level and the right amount of gas. Now that the chain's connected and the throttle's connected, we can start the engine and go. Safety first. Always make sure you wear a helmet while driving a GoKart.
Go ahead.
Hopefully these instructions and the list of parts help you build your own GoKart too.